Next up, we have Beyond the Hype, Navigating New Trends in Influencer Marketing. Your moderator is Amanda Lau from Beacon Media. Amanda?
Hello. Is this on? Yes, we're amazing. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today for navigating new trends in influencer marketing. We know this is a hot topic, and we can tell by the turnout right now. No pressure. That we're all excited for this panel. So thank you so much. My name is Amanda Leo, and I've been working with influencers for the last 14 years or so now. I'm the VP of Communications, Engagement, and PR at Beacon Media Group. In 2024, we ran more paid influencer programs than we had ever run before. And these influencer programs are really ranging from, $10,000 for a nano campaign to $500,000, multi-tiered, multi-KPIs, and a number of different objectives. So we're really at the forefront here in understanding how brands are working with influencers and just exactly kind of what those campaigns entail. So we're really excited to bring this panel of experts to you, partners, collaborators, colleagues that I get to work with. So with that, I will introduce our panel. So first we have Nishi Arjan, who is the Brand Partnerships Manager, Media and Entertainment Toys at TikTok. I'm sure we're all very excited to talk to her. We have Katomi Nanjo, VP of Marketing at Goliath. We have Jake Rosen, CEO of influencer agency Jake Rosen Entertainment. And Morgan Mooney, Senior Director of Digital Media at Beacon Media Group. So let's kick this off. We understand by kind of chatting a little bit about the current landscape. So we know that influencer marketing is no longer a cookie cutter approach. There's not a one size fits all. We're seeing that people are really engaging with influencers in so many different ways. We see co-creators of products now. We see long-term ambassadors. We're starting to see affiliate links kind of arising more and more. So I'd like to kick it off by asking Jake, what are you seeing in those contracts and ways that brands are engaging with influencers nowadays?
Yeah, I think the ways that, traditional influencer marketing campaigns used to work is brands would be like, we need to come up with an idea and make it viral and come up with this idea and we'll make something viral on social media. And I think the biggest change I'm seeing is brands are now not trying to make things viral, but see what is going viral and then make campaigns based on that. So, a good example of that is I represent a lot of talent in the foodie space. And there was a viral trend on TikTok to go to Chili's and order this thing called the Triple Dipper.
Yes. I'm familiar.
Yes.
I watch them.
The cheese ball.
The cheese, so it's a mozzarella stick and you pull and it just basically goes forever and ever and ever. And every time one of my talent would post it, it would get millions and millions of views. And Chili's previously didn't have much of a marketing budget to put towards influencers. It wasn't something they were focused on. But seeing this trend and seeing the number of views that this was getting, they were like, we have to jump in on this. So not only did they start putting spend in influencer marketing, getting people to promote the Triple Dipper, but they also made a Halloween costume of the mozzarella stick with two people that would, each side was part of the mozzarella stick and they were pulling. So I think that's just a great example of seeing something that's trending organically, taking advantage of it, and really running marketing campaigns based on it. And I also think I am seeing a lot more success with me as a talent manager going to a brand, instead of being like, X talent would love to partner, I think they'd be a great fit, saying, X talent would love to partner, here's 7 organic posts they've done showing that they actually use your product. Clearly, this is something they should do. So I think we're just seeing a lot more strategic thinking when we're coming up with some ideas for some partnerships.
I hear that. I think that when we're media monitoring as well and we're looking at what talent is naturally posting, that's for sure a better inclination of how it's going to look when we're working with them. Nishi, speaking of kind of current trends right now, we're always trying to figure out this stinking TikTok algorithm. So I would love if you could shed a little bit of light on what is sort of the algorithm evolution in short form video? What should brands be focused on in 2025? And kind of give us that secret sauce to what we're looking for on TikTok.
Of course. So There is no secret sauce, unfortunately. What we can say is we've spent a lot of analytics and research developing what we call our creative codes. So there's 6 creative codes. If you guys ever decide to go through like TikTok's website, go to Creative Center, you'll see them listed. And those are like the holy grail. Like that is quote unquote our secret sauce. So a couple of them that come top of mind are stimulation. So quick shots, text, something that can capture your audience in the first 3 seconds. It shouldn't be led with branding, but something that's a subtle cue. And then the second one is storytelling and structure. So you'll see a lot of like aha moments or working your way back moments. I think Lego does this really well. MGA Miniverse does this really well. So they'll like roll out all of the pieces, or they'll show like, I think Lego, one of my favorite ones was the botanical, and it shows like this gorgeous botanical set built from scratch. She's like, here's how I did it. And then it starts from the exact opposite and she shows you how to make it, but it's done in like less than 20 seconds. Very quick, very stimulating, and it captures the user's attention. There's also sound. We're the only sound on 100% platform, so like leverage sound, figure out like ASMR, figure out how to lead with your own trending sound. There are many others, but those are just a few.
I love that. That's great. Thank you for that. Katomi, I would love to ask you, so this is a sort of, constant conversation when we're talking about strategies and budgets, but are you seeing shifts in influencer marketing and where people are putting dollars, where brands are putting dollars? Are you seeing the shifts into influencer? Is it into new platforms? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think anecdotally talking to my colleagues in the toy industry doing marketing, similar roles that I do in Goliath, there is a larger focus on influencer marketing. We were relying a lot more on their content as well when it comes to paid media. At Goliath, we entered a brand new category last year. We're very known for tabletop gaming, but we intentionally started to build a traditional toy business. So naturally reaching an audience where we were not familiar with, we wanted to build trust with the audience, especially with parents involved. Paid media integration has been a big part of our budget conversation and strategic sort of planning with Beacon. And then lastly, for the first time, we're a little bit maybe late to the game, but for the first time we started long-term ambassador partnership last year. Particularly on the game side, we have such classic titles that don't need new awareness, but we always want to recruit new consumers in. Games is something that can live on shelf for years and years and decades, so investing in that long term with ambassadors that are really trusted in that space proved to be really successful for us last year.
Awesome, that's great. And Morgan, can you talk to us a little bit about the role of paid media in particular when it comes to integrating into influencer campaigns?
Yeah, absolutely. Putting paid media dollars behind the amplification of influencer content is something a majority of our clients are taking advantage of right now. It gives you the opportunity to reach your target audience more broadly, but with the customizable opportunities and tools within paid social platforms, you're able to really like eliminate that waste and distribute your content with relevant scale. And it's something that can be used across objectives. So whether you're looking to, like Katomi said earlier, drive brand awareness and reach, or if you're focusing on more mid or lower funnel goals like driving clicks or traffic to purchase, paid media can play a role in all of those objectives.
Awesome, thank you. So emerging trends, one of the things that we talk about all the time in maybe every department is AI. And how is AI, affecting or impacting influencer marketing? So Nishi, I would love to hear what you have to say about that.
Oh man, AI.
Loaded question.
No, it's a great question because it is where the industry, we're there. I can't speak to all facets of AI within TikTok. What I can say is we have an insanely progressive roadmap that's tackling AI as part of it. One of them is Content Suite. And it's actually something we've all been talking through in this last section, but Content Suite is rolling out. It's in beta, so you guys are kind of hearing it first, where we can basically tap into auditory and visual cues on our platform through this algorithm, this magic algorithm. And we can— This dang algorithm, no, but it's really cool. So it's auditory, visual cues, and that way brands can isolate influencers and creators that are naturally in their own environment speaking to their brand or product. So if I'm Barbie, for example, and I have XYZ content creators who have no ambassadorship or affiliation with Mattel, but they're speaking to my brand, I can basically source them and contract them. We take care of contracting, so you guys don't have to touch it. And the next thing you know, you have a partnership for 90 plus days. So it's a great way that the algorithm is kind of providing clients the best output while also letting creators do what they do best, which is authentically shine, advocate for brands, and over time become something like a brand ambassador.
That's incredible. That's really awesome. Because I think one of the bigger, more lengthy processes for us is let's find the right influencers and how do we determine that they're right and they make sense for this brand versus another. So that is very useful. I'm looking forward to that. Katomi, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, for us, we're design and manufacture and sell B2B. So we really lean on our partners and using their backend AI systems to, I mean, Beacon is a great example of finding like influencers in similar categories, similar content types, audience demographic has been really helpful for us. We have another partner Reddit. We partnered with Reddit on a paid media campaign and they use their own sort of copywriting AI to make sure that our language matched the subreddit language that we needed to do. And that was full historical uploaded into their system. We could have done it too, but it saved us hours of research. It was great. But something that we've been talking about, we haven't really executed. We had a campaign last year around a game called Unsolved Case Files. It's literally just sifting through fake evidence and photography to find the killer and find out what happened to the victim. And we really wanted the content creators to set the vibe of like a mysterious, murder mystery. It was difficult to find the right music that was royalty free because we intended to use that as paid later. So I think with generative and music and royalty free, I think that's something we'd like to explore next year when we really want to set a certain tone. Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
I love that too from a paid media side
Yeah.
that you're thinking
You're
about
that makes my job way easier. Morgan, with TikTok's growing dominance and emerging trends consistently arising, how should brands focus their influencer marketing efforts?
Yeah, so as a media agency, of course, at Beacon, it's our job really to kind of constantly evaluate all the emerging platforms in the marketplace. The hot buttons right now, obviously TikTok and Instagram are tried and true, but as YouTube Shorts is kind of coming up and influencers are becoming more rampant on Snapchat, these are things that we're going to be constantly evaluating. But I think what's most important is once we identify that platform based on your target audience and who you're trying to reach, is really partnering with your influencer selection team. So Amanda and I will make sure that from the top down that your paid media goals and your influencer goals are aligned. You want to make sure if you're looking at a brand awareness strategy that you're really leaning into that storytelling, the third-party validation of the influencer. Whereas if maybe you're moving further down the funnel, purchase intent or driving sales, that you're kind of leaning into a strong call to action and looking more into product messaging. So that's something that we would, from the brief on, align from the start to make sure that everything is cohesive.
Awesome. Jake, I would love on the growing dominance of certain emerging platforms. Are you seeing that brands are coming to you more with one platform in particular? Is that TikTok right now, or is it still kind of a 50-50 with Instagram?
Yeah, I think the benefit of short form is that a lot of our creators have strong followings across multiple platforms. So a lot of what we're seeing is a brand that will hire talent for TikTok, but also have that TikTok syndicated to Instagram. Because realistically, while there's obviously a lot of overlap in audience, you're not watching a piece of content on TikTok and then watching the exact same piece of content on Instagram, right? So it's typically hitting different people.
Right.
So I think the fact that you can create one piece of content but be able to put it across multiple different platforms is something that brands are really taking advantage of so that they can hit different audiences and not really just rely on one platform. And if it doesn't work or perform well, then they've sort of, risked it all on one place.
Right.
If I could add to that too, recently just with the fate of TikTok in the US in question, we've preferred multi-platform influencers as well. Like, this is a really good backup plan.
Yes.
And they generally have similar audience demographics.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Yeah, that's great. Speaking a little bit to what Morgan was talking about with, if you're driving brand awareness, what the content needs to look like, and maybe if you're further down the funnel, maybe something else. Katomi, I'd love to hear from you. How are brands balancing organic storytelling with performance-driven influencer partners?
This is something we're still sort of disciplining as a team, but like Morgan mentioned earlier, the awareness drive is really about building that trust. So it's really important for the creator or the influencer to feel like they really do love, enjoy playing with this product or using that product. And I think as brand marketers, our team is part of research, development, and design. So they've really taken this brand as their
All
own.
of those key messages are
Letting
important.
go, yeah, totally. Letting go of control and messaging is a discipline, but we've seen the results when we say, we love your content, we love your style. Here's the product, here's the one thing you need to say about it or show about it. The rest is up to you. And our best engagements have come from a simple brief when it comes to awareness driving. And on the conversion end, just like Morgan said, that's when we can be a little bit more prescriptive. Where can you buy it? Who is it for? What are the concerns or areas of the product that could get people really excited? That has also been great for Q4 for us. Christmas time.
And I think to add to that, picking influencers that already do these different types of content is really important. So finding the influencers that do the lifestyle content to drive awareness, and then finding the influencers that do more product focused, so that they're staying in their lane, but we're still getting to hit our objectives. It's really important. Nishi, do you have anything to add there?
I actually love that. I think content mapping across the funnel is so important. I will say when it comes to organic, we always get this question on like, how do we make organic work? And the one answer that's kind of been tried and true is organic is your ongoing presence on any channel, regardless of if it's TikTok or any others. Organic will be the continual force of like stream of conversation that you'll have with your consumers through and through. And that's what can actually build brand ambassadors over time. Supplement that with paid media, and that's when you're actually driving full funnel conversion. So the one thing I would always note, and this will be a thing for TikTok till the day I die, is always on. And your way to always be on is through organic. So tap into that organic base. You have no idea what kind of content sparks on organic that you can then boost through paid. And then eventually that ladders up into a much broader strategy.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. Speaking about keeping that organic engine on, and different ways of working with influencers, Jake, how are influencers monetizing differently today? So we've started to see things like affiliate marketing, affiliate links, which I know is definitely one of them. But you could talk about different ways that influencers are really working with brands financially.
Yeah, I always encourage my talent to diversify their revenue streams. And, obviously a majority of how a lot of our talent make their money is from brand deals and partnerships, but brand deals are not necessarily consistent. And, it's not something you can necessarily rely on. You might have a great month this month and get no deals the next month. So I think it's super important to diversify their revenue stream, whether, I encourage them to create their own following outside of the platforms, right? Create a newsletter, start maybe a product line or merch. I always ask talent to continue to post their content on other social platforms. We obviously had a big situation with the potential TikTok ban where I had talent that had following strictly on TikTok and nowhere else. And then TikTok's going away and then everything you've built is just gone. So I think it was actually a good jump scare for a lot of talent to realize that you can't put all your eggs in one basket, and it's really important to continue to diversify. But I do think, on the same point with, I think affiliate marketing is going to continue to grow and grow. A lot of my talent is really into TikTok Shop and everything they have going on over there. I think it's great because it allows talent to post about products organically, not have talking points that they need to hit. Also be able to potentially drive sales that will help paid partnerships, because I could go back with that data and say, hey, they just posted this on TikTok Shop. They sold 10,000 of these. Clearly their audience listens when they speak. You should work with them in a paid capacity. So I think the affiliate will continue to grow, and it'll continue to help the paid partnerships by allowing us to get data that will be able to show us, why our talent are a good fit for those campaigns.
That is really smart. Actually, I never thought about that, but kind of selling product that you already love and then going back to a brand makes a lot of sense. Morgan, how do you measure success of a paid influencer campaign with paid media?
That's also a loaded question, right? So success with with influencer campaigns within paid media definitely depends and varies on your goals, as we've been mentioning this entire time. And just to kind of riff off what Jake was saying, if you are looking to drive sales and you have your own and operated e-commerce operation, or you're heavily involved on the TikTok Shop, this is a great way we can actually optimize in real time, looking at performance data and actually cultivate our strategy to optimize towards the the influencer messages that are actually driving your sales. So that's on the lower funnel end. And then as you kind of ladder up to upper funnel, what we find most valuable and important in the paid media sector is looking at view rates. A lot of people in paid media love to use impressions, right, and reach, but we really want to look at how the consumers are resonating with your message and the longer time spent there. And that's why it's really important on the brand awareness side is to kind of keep the consumers engaged with your messaging and looking at view rates. We see really high view rates as it pertains to influencer content on TikTok, obviously, and Instagram. And we actually see it outperform traditional branded content on social. So it's really important that at Beacon, we cultivate influencer specific benchmarks. So that way, obviously, if you're running influencer messaging and it performs well, obviously it's going to perform better than some of the branded content that we run, but making sure that we actually are identifying the strong influencer messages so that can help inform us for future campaigns is really kind of where we dive into success on the brand awareness side.
Beautiful. Thank you. I like the clap, Sandra. Katomi, can you tell me what mistakes that you see or you think that brands are making when it comes to working with influencers, and how would we fix those or correct those?
Yeah, I mean, I can speak to a lot of the learnings that we've had internally. We've talked about the biggest one before, which was the discipline of letting go. That is so important to leverage. The creator, I mean, we picked them because they make great content and they have great views and a dedicated audience. And then sometimes we cut them and we just too branded.
But do it this way and move it
Can
this
you
way.
just, Chip should really sit in this square? We're letting go. It's definitely a discipline. And I think recently Beacon's been really great at kind of looking at the analytics and the insights and tweaking the way that we approach influencer marketing. And a lot of that is defining who's great for awareness and who's great for a conversion. And even within that, we do a lot of sort of early whitelisting across all of our influencers to see if we can identify who of these people, even though they might have a really engaged follower, once you go wider, the content out of context doesn't always resonate, which isn't a great paid integration. So I think learn as you go and not expect this immediate success or that we know. I think letting go of expectation has always been a discipline. I know I'm talking in a circles a little bit. It's really about letting go and letting them do their thing and letting the data speak back to us, because the data is our audience at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that also making sure that your campaigns are well-rounded enough to be able to test all of those creatives. You know, if we, make sure that we have a little bit of different kind of approaches to the creative, it helps when when Morgan's team taps in and they have different types of creative to try and test when we're boosting.
More is always good for social.
Yeah.
We want options.
Nishi, what data-backed strategies are proving most effective for creator brands on TikTok right now?
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to say the last two responses, fire, guys. Like, fire.
Nishi.
Like, 10 on 10.
Woo!
I was like, yes! Can I turn my mic on?
Exactly. Wow, this is a good panel.
No, like, sound. Like, all of this feedback has just been so... I just love it. This is great. Good energy, good vibes. Okay, I'm sorry. What was the question? Oh, strategy. I was just so excited. Strategy. Okay.
Data-backed strategies
Yes,
that
okay.
are working on TikTok right
Yes,
now
okay.
for creators.
Okay. So I can speak to creators and brands, more brand first. I think it's really important for brands to step away from only organic. That does not work. You can have organic going, and like I mentioned earlier, have that be the ongoing conversation. You have to do, and like this is the tried and true tactic on TikTok specifically. Evergreen presence is key. So organic will be your evergreen. With that, have paid media to amplify. So you use that to boost organic media, because that's where you're going to find like those creators who exactly what Katomi was talking about, or driving each part of the funnel. But then you lead up to a big moment. So every category, like CPG and beyond, always has these like pulses, whether it's summer, back to school, holiday, obviously Q4. For those moments, lead up to it with at least like a 4-week lead time. Typically for holiday, for example, kick off in October. Like literally October 1st is where you start. And then lead up and make sure the paid is building up throughout that. The synergy of the two is what works best. But I thankfully we're no longer in that era where it's like, I can only do organic and it'll be fine. You can, but the level of traction you'll receive is far less than the culmination of both together and having the spikes, because when you have the spikes, that's when you take over moments, and that's where brands actually win in the category.
That is a great response. I think one of the things that we talk about internally often is cutting through the noise and spreading yourself too thin and hoping that you're gonna saturate the market or cut through the noise is it's not really possible anymore. So you really need to understand what are those key marks for you and drive into that. So that's great. We are going to open up the floor to some questions right now. I think we're right on time, which is pretty incredible. So yeah, we'll open the floor to some questions. I don't know. I know there's a mic. Oh, love that.
In terms of when inventory is actually available. Okay. Yeah, totally. We go through this with almost every client I work on. Start some form of conversation leading up to, and it can be broader brand awareness. So if I have a new holiday merchandise that's releasing on like 11/1, for example, kickoff 10/1, speaking to my overarching brand, which is Lego. Lego, all things Lego. I have XYZ ambassadors that really help bring it. Awareness is like top and foremost key. It's so interesting because we have clients who are like, oh, I don't need awareness. But I'm like, no, you do. No, you do. Like, even if you're a legacy brand, awareness on TikTok is different. And the kind of audience you'll find on TikTok is different than any other platform. It's so interesting. We go through this question all the time. I'm like, oh, if this is my core consumer on Instagram, let me lift and shift this on TikTok. It doesn't work. You need to figure out who your base is on TikTok. So start early. Build broader brand awareness of just your brand, your core consumer brand, and then lead up to that key rollout. And then with that, I mean, coming like media mindset, pull out premium formats, like do a top view, do a takeover, do something like that. I swear it actually works. And then you carry on the conversation till typically 4 days into like post-Christmas is what we've seen as like the sweet spot.
I was gonna say, just to add that to really quickly, with some of our clients who are maybe on some of the smaller brands who maybe can't afford to activate in all those ways through all those times, we see a lot of the time where maybe launch is really important to them when inventory sets and maybe doing that an influencer strategy. But the best part about the paid media option is we can do that across any time period. So saving your paid media investment for when it really matters, maybe in Q4, you can leverage the content that you did for launch in retail set in July or August and bring that back around holiday when you're really investing in paid media and trying to, generate your ROAS at that point.
I would also say, speaking to kind of what Nishi was saying, like when Morgan and I will work together, we'll start with maybe a heavy influencer seeding program with micro influencers. That starts the conversation. And then we're going to start with our traditional media outlets, getting those gift guides going. So that starts that's that first lever that's turned on. And then the further down we go into Q4, that's when the different levers turn on paid as well. That's when our paid influencers start. And then further down, we'll turn them on in terms of whitelisting. So it is a build approach, and it really typically starts with a heavy earned campaign, getting that conversation going, and then being able to leverage that content on their social platforms. Other questions? That was a great one. Thank you. No questions? Hi.
Question about how the industry works. If you want someone to promote the product or a new brand or something and they're trending, you don't have a prior contract. So how do you, I don't know if you can kind of share with that, how do you deal with that? Like,
How do you reach out to them?
yeah, and like, do you ask them to sign a contract, or you just have like something small that says at least you are buying with these conditions? Because some of them have no experience how they will deal with this big brand. Maybe some of them are concerned about if I have any liability. I don't know, like, how do you have that conversation?
I'm not understanding the question. With a bigger influencer, you're trying to get your product to a
Even with
bigger-
the small ones, I didn't know the concept of micro influencers, but
Right.
if they're gonna promote a brand, how do you start that conversation, and do you use contracts for that?
Right. Okay. So typically when we're working on an earned capacity, we don't put a contract in front of anyone because, there'll be a money conversation, a financial conversation right off the hop. So we look for influencers that we would typically feel are generally interested in, like, for example, if it's classic games, do they play a lot of classic games? Do they have a lot of family time? And then reach out to them and ask them if they're interested in receiving a gifted product from us. Now, what we do at Beacon, and it definitely takes a little bit more time, is we do have the conversation that if we do give this to you, if you love it, we do expect and hope that you're going to go ahead and share it, but we never, send it and ask specifically for a post or guide messaging if it's through it from an earned capacity. So it takes a little bit longer, but we do see about a 70-80% return on posting when we do it that way, which works out really well for us.
So a question right here. So when it comes to influencers, you mentioned micro influencers,
Yes.
and I guess there's major influencers.
There's multiple different tiers.
How do you find them?
How do you find them? So a number of different ways. I am lucky to work with a ton of Gen Zs that just stalk out Instagram and TikTok all day, and they let me know who's cool. But we also have software that we use where we can search for different influencers. We can search for tags for competitive brands, things like that, to really pull up a full list. And then we do go through them one by one to make sure that they're proper fits, that they're not working with any competitors, or if they are, how long ago was that, and kind of filter them through that way.
I can
So
add to
it's
that
definitely a
too. It's
process.
less sophisticated of a process, but internally we work in a company of like probably 50 people in the office, multiple opportunities to talk about what we're making, what we're designing, what's coming out next year. Inevitably, there are several people in the audience from several departments that are like, oh my God, I love that. Marketing team walks right up to them after and go, what's on your For You page? And it's usually an indicator that they are our target audience. If they want it, they love it, then there's nothing more than going through their feed and being like this person, that person, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
Beacon will use that as a brief to find like influencers as well.
Absolutely. I will also say on TikTok now, just being able to use TikTok like a search engine, you can really just type in what you're looking for and continue to scroll and save those influencers.
Right here.
Hi.
Oh, hi. In terms of the toy industry and influence marketing, the influencer marketing, like toys is tricky, right? Because the age range is so wide. How does your approach shift with each age group? Because some of them have
That is a
access to
great
phones, some of
question.
them do not. Some of them rely on their parents. I'm just
Age
curious.
has a lot to do with it. And then understanding the platforms. Like we know as soon as kids, girls in particular, are about 8-9 years old, they are using TikTok big time. But we also know that one of the best ways to still get to kids is through YouTube and YouTube influencers. But if we are looking to drive purchase intent, and we're talking to moms, then we're on Instagram and TikTok for the most part. So, but oftentimes it's a multi-tiered approach and multi-pronged. So where are we getting kids to drive that nag factor? Where are we getting moms to drive purchase consideration?
Just to add on to that, so on TikTok, for example, you can only go after a specific age range and up. So parents are like the holy grail. The kids are the like advocates, the brand advocates, the ones that actually incite plant the seeds of the purchase. But point of conversion will always be the parent. So we've done these exercises with a couple of our clients on figuring out like what is the emotion. It's really like psychological. What is like the emotional incentive that makes the final point of final point of conversion for a parent. And so like per brand, we look into each like incentive basically that actually triggers conversion and what that feeling is for like a parent to go through. And then that is their like new identity per brand. And then we go after that and we'll find the creators who really speak to those moments perfectly and can bring that moment to life.
I had a question about budget. Like, what's the lowest budget like when you're starting out that you could hire a company like yours?
It is really a tough question. I think that goes back to your objectives. Like if, for example, we're just looking for UGC with influencers to drive our social channels, then you can get really small creators that make some great content for very low budgets. But if we're looking to create a multi-tier, multi-pronged approach, then you're definitely looking at multiple thousands of dollars. I would say your lowest for like a nano campaign The lowest that we've done, I'll say the lowest that we've done is $10,000.
I'm good.
I
Okay.
don't know if anyone-
Oh, does someone else have a? Oh, I've got the microphone, so I get to ask a question. Can you just talk a little bit about conversion measurement, and particularly like how do you decide what is the right measurement for conversion, and then how do you optimize targeting around that, specifically with influencers? Because I think that sometimes can be a little bit difficult. Like you're looking at when the video goes up or how long the long tail is before it hits. Maybe just talk a little bit about what that means for people.
Yeah, sure. I could talk about it from a paid media perspective. So when we are putting dollars behind the actual ad, the actual influencer content, so boosting on TikTok or whitelisting on Instagram. If you have an owned and operated e-commerce operation, or you're on the TikTok shop or social shopping, we can actually see back end which messages are driving those sales. So we do have benchmarks in place that we kind of evaluate in terms of where your sales were prior and then sales lifts to figure out what that CPA should be. And we back into it with a benchmark. So then looking at each of the influencer messages, we can actually optimize towards the best performers to generate those sales. Where it gets a little difficult is, and I know that's a case for a lot of the people showing here, is when you are available at retail for e-commerce and you don't own those channels, right? When you're on Amazon or Walmart or Target, that's where we kind of lose the ability to actually optimize towards conversion. But that's when we would dive into the POS data and look at different tentpoles. So, right, when our influencer marketing went live, when we had the paid media to support it, leaving a tail so that we can actually look at lift and measurement that way. So it's more of a full-pronged analysis versus actually being able to drive a click to a purchase, if that makes sense.
And I was just saying, I think something that brands can do a lot better from the talent perspective and the talent side is telling talent what is deemed success and what is a successful campaign. I think we talked a little bit earlier about like some talent are put into an awareness campaign and some talent are put into conversion campaigns. Most of the time, the talent doesn't know which one they're even put in, right? So I think letting talent know, hey, like the goal of this is to drive views, like this is what they really want, do your organic stuff, or like, hey, I know these are a lot of talking points. Like, I know this is probably going to make this not sound exactly like you, but the goal of this is they're going to put paid media behind. So if it doesn't do as well, don't stress. They're going to boost it. I think that transparency with talent would give them a better mindset of knowing when they're creating content, what they're creating it for. Because to the point of, what is considered conversion data, what is success and what is not success, I think that's something that is not as transparent on the talent side of things and something that I think could help them with when they're creating their content.
I can add to that too. It's a question that comes up all the time in our company is like, how do you know it's really working? And we're also working with executives who are used to seeing linear television commercials, and then a week later you're seeing a 30 to 50% lift. So to put it shortly, isolating influencers campaigns to really understand the impact of that for your sort of daily or weekly sales or however you measure it is a really good way to do it if you have the resources and the time to do it. Also understanding what your baseline sale is. So without any marketing and anything going on, how many pieces or dollars is your brand or product generating on a weekly basis? Removing a lot of these sort of purchasing seasonalities, Easter occasions, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, all of that. Once you understand what your sales expectation is when you're not doing anything, and then you add a tactic on top of that, be it influencers or paid digital, then you start to realize, okay, this is what it could do. And over time, as you do more of those campaigns, you start to understand what's the average benchmark and what is exceeding your expectations. It takes some time, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, everyone. I am going to close this out by asking each of our panelists to share in one sentence what's your number one piece of advice that you would give a brand looking to elevate their influencer marketing game in 2025?
Okay, I learned this from Creative Labs, which is a great tool within TikTok. You, as a client, know your brand better than any other person in the room. So own your brand voice. But to Katomi's point, leave the creators to their own, like let the creators be free. Don't try to pigeonhole them. They tap into their followers, but you know your brand best. And the culmination of the two is what's going to drive the highest return on investment.
That's great. Thank you.
Definitely leave the creators to create and do their job. We made the product, they're going to make the content, and that is our relationship. It works best. I also think for us, if you have, again, the time and the resources to do influencers early, earned, nano, macro, I think having that lead time of understanding, one, who has the engagement, but two, whose content has the ability to reach beyond their audience, that is so valuable. Because for us, over 50% of our overall budget is spent in Q4. So by the time I get there, I need confidence that we have the best content out there, and that lead time really helps us out.
Yeah, I would say don't assume your audience on social is necessarily the same audience that you have in stores and on your site, right? So I say that to say it's a lot less risky to take a chance on a social campaign and try something new and see if it works than to obviously put a new toy or something in stores. So I think just throw spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks. Don't be afraid to try something new on social because it's the easiest way to test your audience, see what works, and maybe even find some new users.
Awesome.
And for me, it's definitely making sure that your influencer campaigns and your paid media objectives align, ensuring your messaging, depending on your goals and objectives, are achieving that. Storytelling for brand awareness and making sure that you have a strong call to action when you're trying to drive sales.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for coming to the panel, guys.